Meanwhile, Palm Springs recently voted to move forward with acquiring a nearly $6 million site to use as a facility to help the homeless. The city says it would be a comprehensive navigation center on McCarthy Road to help the homeless, but residents who would live near it in North Palm Springs are concerned. I spoke today with City Manager Justin Clifton. Justin, first off, for folks who are not familiar with the Homeless Navigation Center, what is it and what is the difference between that and a homeless shelter?
Very good question. So the premise of a navigation center is that you're going to co-locate housing or shelter and lots of other wraparound services that are needed to lift people out of homelessness. As some say, the solution to homelessness is a home. So while there might be some shelter beds, which are typically the kinds of things someone can walk in, take for a night or two and leave, really, a navigation center, while it might have that, is going to be focused more on transitional housing. What we need to do is stabilize people's condition, sometimes manage a current crisis that they might be involved in, and ultimately get them all the other services, behavioral health, substance abuse, job counseling, and all of the above to get them into a better situation where they can eventually transition into permanent housing and out of homelessness altogether.
And where's the money for all this coming from?
There are a variety of sources. So certainly some of the money that the city acquired to help with these kinds of initiatives, $10 million from the state is helpful. Some substantial, maybe $5 or $6 million was allocated to some affordable housing projects, and a good portion would be allocated to this navigation center. But above and beyond that, it's discretionary resources. I think we just can't continue to say, well, this is primarily a state and a county obligation anymore. These days, to really move forward, cities have to step up, and that's what Palm Springs is doing.
I know statewide we keep hearing about the rise in the number of homeless people. Just how bad has the situation gotten in Palm Springs?
It's all relative, so it depends on who you ask. I think sometimes when people compare us to some of the coastal communities, they say it's not so bad. But for those that have been here for a long time and remember where it wasn't quite what it is today, they'd say it's gotten much worse. I think most concerning are some of those really difficult cases where you might have a combination of substance abuse and mental illness, where those tend to manifest sometimes in aggressive situations, vandalism, or other lewd public behavior that people really want to see cleaned up.
Now, I know there was a lot of discussion about the location for this facility. Originally, there was potential for a spot on Ramon Road near the airport, but then that was scrapped and now it's moving to North Palm Springs, correct?
But to be fair, the city staff has been looking at sites for some time. And very recently, we brought City Council a report that looked at a number of sites, some that were undeveloped and a few that had existing buildings. So the property at the north end of town on McCarthy Road was one of those. And then there was another on Ramon that actually at the time of the staff report was not even available. It was under contract. For that reason, staff hadn't done quite as much due diligence, but thought it served as a good comparison for price and other conditions to highlight the McCarthy property. Council gave us the direction after learning that it had in fact fallen out of escrow, the Ramon property, and was available, to do a little more due diligence on that, and we did, but still all arrows really pointed to that property at the north end. It's simply better suited for the kind of comprehensive services we contemplate with this navigation center.
So what would you say then to Justin, to folks who are not in support of having it in the north end of Palm Springs, specifically those folks in the Gateway Estates neighborhood who think it's only going to add to the problems that they're already dealing with?
Yeah, so first of all, it's really important that we have heard and continue to hear those voices. I don't pretend that we can reach consensus in a community on almost any issue, let alone one as impactful and controversial as where to locate these kinds of services. But we have an opportunity moving forward to continue the community conversation, find ways to mitigate what might be what people are worried about for secondary impacts. So we want to keep that conversation going. I expect that's a conversation we would have no matter where this was located, to be very honest with you. In this case, since we have decided for the time being to move forward with that property at the north end, we want to commence those conversations in earnest and really have an in-depth discussion with those communities about how we can make this work.
What are the next steps and anything else you'd like to say?
Well, certainly we just need to handle some of the X's and O's to come up with the legal instruments to acquire the property. We need to go out pretty quickly for some sort of a request for proposal for providers, bring a service provider on early that can help us navigate some of those community conversations and determine what services will be provided and how that informs the design of the building. And then again, some robust public outreach so that we can really network with surrounding neighbors and figure out how to do this right. So those are really the next steps. The only other thing I would add is that this really is a vexing issue. It's been difficult for communities across the country, certainly throughout California. And this is a multifaceted approach. So while we're really talking about the navigation center today, we've done things. We've improved our relationship with service providers like Martha's Village and Kitchen, expanded those investments. They've been operating a daytime access center and during the warmest months, an overnight shelter. And both of those have been providing valuable services to hundreds of unduplicated individuals with secondary impact. So we see that fostering the right kinds of relationships can really be effective. At the same time, we're expanding security. We've closed a local park and we're doing other things to really address what people see as the worst of the secondary impacts. So it's not going to happen overnight, but we are putting forth a lot of effort, a lot of resources, and we'll continue to do so until we can move the needle on this issue.
All right, Justin, we appreciate your time. Thanks for joining us.